coming yesterday, you could have seen it.
Oh, really? It was just this morning?
Well, yesterday, late afternoon.
Yeah, you can kind of see it better.
The appalling state of peril of free speech in this country and what British people are being subjected to on a creeping authoritarian basis in terms of obviously the Online Safety Act, which we can talk about, which Reform has committed to repeal because all it's doing, it's making children less safe, and it is having a very chilling effect on political dissent in this country. But it's also, you know, we can talk about the Connolly case. We can talk about obviously the case of the Father Ted, the creator Father Ted, that was where 5 armed police were deployed to arrest somebody for tweets. Well, because we have legislation in this country which means that more people are arrested for speech in the UK than in Russia, and so the fact that that is true should be something of great concern to everyone in the country. Again, regardless of your political leanings, regardless, you know, the ability to speak your mind freely, with some constraints, of course, you know, inciting violence, shouting fire in a theatre, but that's not what we're talking about here. And now you've got senior figures from the police coming out where the police are saying, well, change the laws then. And I agree with that. I think for too long, you now got the Prime Minister criticising the police, which is, I think, completely unacceptable and ridiculous. When you have left, it is literally the job of politicians, Lois, to legislate, to make the laws. And what I've said is that, you know, Reform are committed to not abdicating that responsibility. Reform will absolutely legislate to make this country a serious one again.
I am the broadcaster here. I can say anything. Everyone can join in. No one can get offended, or they can just fuck off. Do you know what I mean? It's brilliant. Keep it free for you. That's what I want to do. Really keep it free for you. So get it sponsored by someone. I don't know how that would work. I'd quite like to do it that old-fashioned way, where I say, hello, welcome to Load of Bollocks, sponsored by Jameson's, you know, smooth Irish whiskey. And I choose things that I actually like, so I wasn't lying. I'd want to say what I want about them. Pay me, they pay me if they like. Do you know what I mean? And I couldn't change any of the content. They can't say, oh, you can't talk about this. I go bollocks. I talk about what I want. So you've got to be careful what you're sponsored by, so they're not too precious. Like if you get sponsored by the Vatican, you're asking for trouble. They'd call up one day and go, we don't like to talk about the cock in the drain. I go, you changed. So I want to be having a talk about in drains, alien slugs, and all that shit.
And unfortunately, when I look at Europe today, it's sometimes not so clear what happened to some of the Cold War's winners. I look to Brussels, where EU commissars warn citizens that they intend to shut down social media during times of civil unrest the moment they spot what they've judged to be, quote, hateful content. Or to this very country, where police have carried out raids against citizens suspected of posting anti-feminist comments online as part of, quote, combating misogyny on the internet, a day of action. And perhaps most concerningly, I look to our very dear friends, the United Kingdom, where the backslide away from conscience rights has placed the basic liberties of religious Britons in particular in the crosshairs. A little over 2 years ago, the British government charged Adam Smith Connor, a 51-year-old physiotherapist and an Army veteran, with the heinous crime of standing 50 meters from an abortion clinic and silently praying for 3 minutes. Not obstructing anyone, not interacting with anyone, just silently praying on his own. And after British law enforcement spotted him and demanded to know what he was praying for, Adam replied simply, it was on behalf of the unborn son he and his former girlfriend had aborted years before. Now, the officers were not moved. Adam was found guilty of breaking the government's new buffer zones law, which criminalizes silent prayer and other actions that could influence a person's decision within 200 meters of an abortion facility. He was sentenced to pay thousands of pounds in legal costs to the prosecution.
I mean, luckily, I don't think you can take people to court over jokes. Not in a sensible, civilised society where freedom of speech is a cornerstone. It's getting that way. I think there was some sort of thing trying to be passed in Scotland that you could be done for being grossly offensive in a joke. I didn't look into it, but you can't have that. It's a nonsense.
Now, I wish I could say that this was a fluke, a one-off crazy example of a badly written law being enacted against a single person, but no. This last October, just a few months ago, the Scottish government began distributing letters to citizens whose houses lay within so-called safe access zones, warning them that even private prayer within their own homes may amount to breaking the law. Naturally, the government urged readers to report any fellow citizens suspected guilty of thought crime. In Britain and across Europe, free speech, I fear, is in retreat.
Who's to say what? I told you before, if there is a law where you can call the police if someone offends you, I will be on the fucking phone 24/7. I will spend my entire fortune on a bank of 1,000 people on phones just calling the police saying I'm offended. What is it? Fat bloke on a skateboard. Yeah, he's 28. Yeah, he's dressed like a toddler and he's going up and down my street on a skateboard. I find it grossly offensive. All right, you see him get fucking taken away. I will complain about anything that annoys me to show what a fucking farce such a law would be, that you can say something that someone finds offensive, that their feelings are more important than your freedom of speech. So no.
Part of what we're going to have to do is to start experimenting with new forms of journalism and how do we use social media in ways that reaffirm facts, separate facts from opinion. We want diversity of opinion. We don't want diversity of facts. That, I think, is one of the big tasks of social media. By the way, it will require some government, I believe, some government regulatory constraints around some of these business models in a way that's consistent with the First Amendment, but that also says, look, there is a difference between these platforms letting all voices be heard versus a business model that elevates the most hateful voices or the most polarizing voices or the most dangerous in the sense of inciting violence voices. And that I think is going to be a big challenge for all of us that we're going to have to undertake.